I'm Mel. I'm the VP of Accounts at Stacker. We have Michael, Jen, and Lianna. Let's meet them.
I'm Michael Farr. I'm a senior digital acquisition manager at Paylocity. It's a HR and payroll software. I kind of started with SEO, and I've just been acquiring more channels as I go. So I also do our affiliate channels and PPL, and now I lead our AI optimization initiative kind of cross-functionally. And then just to give a shout out to my editorial folks, I started my career as a journalist, actually. So I was the LA Times editor to college. So I have a lot of love for that side of the house.
Awesome. My name is Jen Cornwell. I'm Senior Director AI SEO at Tinuiti. Tinuiti is a performance marketing agency. I've been in the SEO space for about 10 years now. I'm a little newer to Tinuiti team, but excited to be here.
And I'm Lianna Kissinger Virizlay, and I work with Allison Worldwide as an EVP of Integrated and Digital Content. Allison is an Earn First communications agency, so I'm really excited to be on the panel with all of these folks. My background is in content. I started with alternative weeklies when I was in high school and college, and then worked my way into SEO content. And like Michael, have acquired additional channels through my career, and now kind of working with our comms team to understand how to extend their narratives and messages across digital in all the right ways.
Awesome. Well, let's start with a reality check. How many people in your organizations actually know what GEO is? What's baseline level awareness?
Well, I think by that name, probably not many. If I were to go around and say, what is GEO or what is AEO? I don't think that the terminology that we all know here probably hasn't penetrated the broader business world, at least from where I sit. But I think everyone gets the concept. If you talk to someone like, have you noticed that Google answers your question and not just gives you links? People notice that something has changed. But I think certainly senior leadership know it's important. Everyone knows that this is very critical. If it's a risk to not do it. It's more just the education piece of what actually works. That's where there's still a lot of misinformation and confusion.
And what acronym to use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'd say everyone's aware. I think what's been interesting as an SEO, who's been in the space for a long time, is that clients are coming to us to talk about SEO. Not that they weren't before, but it's just so much more apparent and in bigger headlines than ever before. This like SEO GEO conversation, whatever acronym, alphabet. I think we actually just need to get away from acronyms. That was my take, is we just need to call it AI search visibility or search everywhere optimization, and just rebrand ourselves, which will never happen, but it's fine. Anyway, yeah, everyone is very much aware, and we're like seeing that clients are learning at the same pace we are, which is a really interesting shift.
Yeah, I would say within our organization, there's high awareness and understanding, and that's largely because a group of us from communications to digital have been monitoring this for a year and starting to build education materials and also build our way of approaching it for at least a year plus. We have a center of excellence around AI visibility. Similarly, are not precious about the acronym, but like Jen, what has really shifted, last year we were trying to talk to our clients about this and they were like, no, go pitch. Mm-hmm. And now they're coming to us and saying, hold the phone. You mentioned something last year. What can we do about it? And we're not having to start those conversations ourselves anymore. They're coming to us.
Awesome. And GEO is obviously a newer discipline, but let's jump in. What is your measurement framework? Probably iterating, evolving, but what is it today?
I can kick us off.
Sure.
So I mentioned we've kind of been figuring this out, learning and testing. We have a great structure at Allison where we have access to enterprise, all of the models at the enterprise level. So we've been free to kind of experiment. And that includes some AI measurement platforms as well. And so for us, there's all this data out there. How do you make it make sense, right? And you mentioned we have to optimize. We just expand our footprint, expand the surface area upon which we have to show up. And so rather than just vomiting a lot of data points on there or like hundreds of prompts, we've worked really, really carefully to take the data at volume and understand what the broad landscape is, particularly from a competitor share of voice standpoint. But then we really niche down into ignore the prompts. What do you want to be known for? And then figuring out with the tools, what are the natural language queries that relate to that authority topical area? So we create this master list, and then we are measuring that on a quarterly basis where we're getting the quantitative insights, but more importantly, looking at how much are you showing up sure? Are you being cited? Are you being mentioned? The sentiment layer, is it good or bad? And I think most importantly, the accuracy layer, which has to be done at a qualitative level. Like, is this saying something that is true about you today? Just because you're showing up for this prompt doesn't mean you're showing up in the way you want. Is it pulling something from a page on your website that hasn't been updated in 6 years? Maybe we should change that. And so when we add that qualitative layer, it gives us a much clearer roadmap of what we might want to influence now for the next 3 months. And then we can measure how we change at the next qualitative review. So I think there's a lot of noise out there, and it's very easy to get distracted or drawn in by some new tool. But at the end of the day, we're all communicators. And I think what's really impactful and meaningful about this moment is that the narrative matters more than ever. And so being able to understand how your narrative is coming through, not just on LLMs, but this has been the case for us always, right? On social, if you're monitoring Reddit and there's a crisis because someone posted a really bad story about your brand and you have no influence on that, that's going to show up. And so I think what it does is give us really great insight, not just on what channel I can own, but what everybody in the organization needs to be owning in order to influence the channels that they lead. And with our audits, I think we found a good way of painting that picture without overwhelming and making it really tactical in terms of what do we start with?
I want to hear from you both, but I'd love to learn more about share of voice. You mentioned that. How do you measure that? I know it can be different at different places.
Yeah, I think that's where quantitative strong tools for AI measurement like Scrunch or Profound can be very helpful, because if you're looking at a broad query set or an industry query set that's informed by the LLMs themselves, you can really just quickly see, okay, and you add your competitors in, right? We're showing up in this number of those queries where our competitors are showing up in this number. The other thing that we get out of it is really good publisher insights. Rob from Scrunch showed that picture that, like, yeah, if you look at the meta trends, Reddit, YouTube, Wikipedia, but if you look at the industry layer, and Muckrak's most recent update to their What is AI Reading report is also, I highly recommend you look at it. It breaks it down by industry as well. So it gives us that nuanced understanding of share of voice, but also which are the publishers that are really moving the needle for this competitive landscape. And for an earned first communications agency, that's really critical information.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I agree with all that. I think we get asked a lot about, like, what are the KPIs we're supposed to be paying attention to? And so SEO has always been a education game. Like, there's so much education that has to go behind, like, why we care about these things, why these things matter, whether it's from trying to understand how to associate with an actual return on investment, or, hey, this is a best practice and we really just should do it. So I think that has become even harder now because measurement is so gray area. But if it's not ranking and clicks anymore, it's influence and sentiment are the two core KPIs that we're measuring. We're also looking at citation share, but I would say what we're having conversations with clients about is, like, what are the KPIs that actually matter for your business and then also your category? Because what we see with some of our legacy bigger brands is they maybe already have that visibility. So actually what we want to focus on is brand narrative and, like, the accuracy, like you mentioned, theme occurrences, like, what are people actually talking about online? And then how do we actually adjust to that in some way? And where is that coming from? So is it an old press release? We've had this happen with a client. It was a really old press release. And there just wasn't fresh information about that particular answer. And so that is what was being cited inside their about profile, right? From a brand perspective, when you put their company name in, that was what was being cited in the AI overview. So those moments of, okay, where is this coming from? And then how do we influence or how do we shift and change? I think it varies heavily by brand. In the beauty space, brand has, like, no opportunity to be cited. Like, we very rarely see the actual brand website show up in those citations versus maybe something that's a little bit more niche, like meat sticks, which is a category I audited recently. Not a lot of other conversation online about meat sticks. So it's coming from the D2C website because that's where the content lives. So that means citation share is an element or an opportunity for that particular brand, where for maybe some of our cosmetics clients, it's more about how do you get into those affiliate articles, or how do you drive other types of citation and narrative conversation about your brand.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I can build on all that. I think we're triangulating across a lot of different metrics, and we're all still figuring it out. Everyone, says that they have the answer is probably selling you something. But I mean, for us, the most important thing immediately was, are you showing up as the best in our category, top in our category? And I think that was an instinct for a lot of us to get for that baseline. But there are lots of other things too. You mentioned citation rate, mention rate. Those are all important. Because I mean, and I like to look at a variety of sources as well. Not even just different types of prompts, but different types of platforms. Because it's in such a nascent space. Yeah, I'm very concerned about being trapped in like my little bias bubble. And so I've been using different platforms just to see, are we seeing the trends go upward in all these different channels, all these different platforms? And that makes me feel a lot more confident when I present to the C-suite that yes, we're not just like, we haven't just like set our own stage and performing for ourselves. Like we're actually seeing this on other multiple sources, multiple prompt sets, objective sets that other people have set up. So that's helped us build confidence for the program and to make us feel like we actually are seeing a real thing.
Awesome. You mentioned C-suite. We just had an awesome panel about C-suite. Where was your leadership team June 2025 versus today on GEO?
Yeah, I think, a year ago, 2 years ago, I was kind of silently doing this work on my own.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Kind of in a quiet corner of the office. Seeing the search generative experience, they just launched on Google. It was like still in Google Labs. And I launched an affiliate program kind of under the radar to try to build what I call the citation targeting program. And then, a year later, the C-suite comes banging on our door. It's like, what are you guys doing about this? And I'm like, I've been doing something about it for a while, but like that effort, that energy from the top really supercharged our efforts. And now I find myself leading, a cross-functional, we call it an AIO initiative. So now the question is not so much what is this and what are you doing about it, till like how much more money do you need and like why are we going faster? The tone has changed a lot.
Yeah. I'd say it's like we talk to brands who are all over the spectrum of like, we've never done SEO before, but we heard about this thing and we're concerned. And I said, oh, well, good. And they just have like different type of work to do versus some of the brands who are maybe more invested in that cross-channel, like cross-organizational management of AI search influence, and how do we work together and pull teams together and starting to dive into that. I will say, other end of the spectrum is like panic red alarm fire, where like everybody is only focused on AI search. I'm like, organic drives all the revenue right now, so please don't forget about it. But it is such a wide spectrum of where brands are at this point.
Yeah, I empathize with the full scale panic. I think a lot of our job is helping our clients to put things into context, right? And to calm down and to see the forest for the trees. From a C-suite perspective at Allison, like I mentioned, we're very AI forward. When I joined 2 years ago, there was already like AI usage training, like how, and they've been rolling out new ways for us to explore and experiment, which has been great. But like I said, I agree with Michael. It's really, the tenor has changed. And just last week, we announced our Center of Excellence around AI search and AI visibility, which has a managing director, and myself and some others across the organization are working to guide our clients just with more formal structure behind it. But I think it really comes down to that from an agency perspective, when you have a range of client sophistication and also different starting points, you have to be a good consultant first, right? You have to help them understand where they are in the space and how to take the first step. And for some that have a great SEO foundation, like HubSpot, that built their content marketing division and get it, the transition is going to be really different. And a lot of our clients are comms first folks that, they have had impression reporting for the longest time. And what can we do now? They're all really excited. And so getting that layer of information about which publishers are moving the needle, The other thing that Muckrack's most recent update showed is that 84% of citations are still driven by earned media. So it's a really exciting space. And I think as a comms agency, that's why we're seeing so much clamor for these services and this insight. But I imagine from an SEO perspective too, what I'm really excited about is it's giving us a way to have the comms team start speaking to the marketing team, right? Yeah. Where historically, I've been at digital first agencies where PR was not a part of the package. And it could be very frustrating because a campaign might launch and the website says something completely different because we didn't know about it. And I think having that consistency of narrative across all those platforms is now just more accelerated. I wouldn't say that it's different or it's new. I think content marketers have been facing this challenge with silos and narrative consistency for their entire careers. But what is exciting, like Michael said, the budgets are there now, and the willingness to listen when something seems so new is giving a great opportunity for us to bring teams together and say, okay, well, you comms team don't have to worry about adding FAQs and schema to your pages and updating your boilerplate everywhere it's listed online. Let the web team work on that. We're going to work on this narrative and these pitchings to this high priority publisher list that you historically have not gone after because you thought they weren't valuable enough, right? So there's different strategies when you can start bringing teams together that can help you make more progress much more quickly than working in alone.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that cues me for what I get most excited about in this space is that this past year, I feel like AI search has been this bridge between two teams that have always operated in these silos, to use your phrase. Like there's brand marketing, they operate a very different way. Have their own metrics, and performance marketing. I come from the performance marketing world, and so lots of revenue, lots of KPIs that we're held accountable to. But like with AI search, I can't get what I need to get done with the traditional levers that I have, and then on the performance side, and so I have to work with the brand side. Luckily, like I said, I have a journalism background, so that's helped to bridge that gap. But having gotten started in the space a little earlier, I was kind of given a charge of the AI initiative, but it's given me an ability to close that gap. Because you can't do, well, I guess what we're realizing is the performance side is our ability to perform well and what people think is the search channel is being affected by our lack of brand invisibility. Mm-hmm. And so we need help. So we're going to employ Stacker. We're going to do this content strategy. So it's just been a beautiful moment. I think for those of us in this room who are positioned and thinking about these things, it's a great career opportunity to get more visibility and have more channels, because CEOs, the C-suites are looking for answers. And if you, I think Noah posts about this a lot, but you do 2 or 3 weeks of study on this topic, and you're a subject matter expert because it is so new. Mm.
Yeah, I agree. I think for us, Tinuiti is a very heavy paid media agency. We have a lot of representation in different paid channels. It's been really interesting to get to collaborate with those groups. So we did a really interesting influencer SEO collab around sentiment, and be able to show that to the client and have this co-led effort and say, hey, when we work together, these are the results we get versus just this is the result of the campaign. Commerce teams, we've been talking a lot with our Amazon team for some clients. Affiliate is a very easy segue in. Paid search, of course, matters, but now we have ads inside of these platforms too. So what does that look like, and how do we have a relationship together that's cohesive and actually a holistic SERP strategy? But that's been a huge unlock across the agency because it also helps them understand what happens with AI SEO, which means that these people just also get better at their own jobs and starting to have those conversations with clients. I got looped in today. I was so proud. Client asked a question about the PDB copy for their Walmart page. And they said, oh, I wanted to do fresh, but it might be real, might be the better term. And so it got sent to me because they're like, I think this is an SEO thing. I said, oh my gosh, they're learning. But yeah, I think things like that are really exciting to get to start to see is just how we collaborate as teams and then within the orgs too, for sure.
GEO is a uniting force, who knew? Mm-hmm. For you two, as agency folks, you both started to talk about this a little bit, but would love for you to dive a little bit deeper into how you're selling this to your clients, given there's less established benchmarks. Clearly, you all are on the cutting edge of creating these benchmarks, but what are you doing there?
I could ladder off what I just said. Some of it is showing them, SEO for so long has been bucketed into you do all our tech checks. And that's it. And then like maybe you talk to our content team and you like give us some keywords and like that's it. And then we're like really limited. But the best SEO relationships I've ever had, this is like pre-AI search, is like when I actually have a seat at the table and I actually have an understanding of what's going on in the larger marketing. Because I might only, be able to offer up like a blog. But there are so many other things I know because SEO captures consumer demand and consumer behavior in such a unique way. I feel like a palm reader sometimes. I'm like doing an audit and I'm like, you ran a campaign about potty training 6 months ago. And they're like, yeah, we did. And I'm like, yeah, I can see all the articles you did. They're being cited. You're more visible when we asked about prompts related to potty training versus these other things that we measured. So I think being able to show some of that real connection and influence of what cross-channel looks like goes such a long way right now. And I mean, transparently for us too, it's like these clients who have maybe been very invested in Tinuiti as a paid agency and now being able to see, oh, okay, SEO, or I say SEO, but like organic, earned, this is such an important part of the full funnel. And there's a way that all of these channels can work together and just drive better overall value.
Yeah, I think GEO is the great unifier is really accurate. And it is what has allowed us to have these conversations and, to what you said, expand the understanding of an individual channel's influence and also its need to work across other channels with a narrative thread. So for us, I'm glad you mentioned influencer because, I mean, if you look at Reddit being, and all the social channels being influential, LinkedIn being influential in AI search, within Allison, media and influence sit in the same division. So creator relationships and also executive thought leadership, where we are running LinkedIn programs, they're all part of the traditional comms offering. So then being able to have a conversation with the comms team that says, okay, but if you really want to show up in AI search, we have to evolve this program to have more surface area across these publishers and with your web team. I think that the web team, the SEO and organic team has historically been the furthest away from PR and comms compared to, say, social, for example. But now, I sit on the integrated digital team. That doesn't work for me, right? I need to be able to come into a comms team and be able to then meet the web team because all of them working together, it's what's going to move the needle. And I think it is just an exciting moment. We can get into what's hard about it, but I feel like if you come at it with the right approach, you can help calm people down and help them get excited about it as well. And once they start collaborating within their own agency, and this then translates to, the narrative piece, which is pulling in the data, product teams, whoever is going to inform your unique point of view that you need to thread through that narrative. I mean, then it's like a big party. So yeah, it really is. Then making sense of who's going to organize the party is the next hurdle.
Yeah, it's going to be different for every organization depending on who's kind of most informed or been doing the work. Because I'm in a similar boat. I mean, I'm coming from the performance SEO side, and I'm going to brand people now and be like, hey, like, what about influencer strategy or Reddit strategy? These are not conversations I would have had 3 years ago. But I've been put in charge of these AI metrics, and I cannot move that needle if we're not doing this other brand stuff. So
yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest. What you just said is like, this is not. SEO cannot do it on their own. No. That's been like what I've been preaching in every talk ever is like, this is not something, you can put your SEO team in charge of it. Like whoever you put in charge of it, they cannot do it by themselves. And it cannot be done with just what you would see as maybe traditional SEO 5 years ago.
Yeah, that does like sort of an evolving layer that's being built either in agencies or in-house. Multidisciplinary practice.
Yeah.
It just involves so many people.
Well, and I'm big on like, I think this is also, if you're in charge of a marketing org in-house, this is a company culture thing. It's like a way of working versus like a one-time project. And how do you develop that change within an organization that actually facilitates your marketers?
Yeah.
It's funny. It reminds me of 10 years ago when it was like, how do we create a culture of content?
Right.
And this is like that same thing on steroids because it's still content-led. So, yes.
Awesome. Jen, would love to see your portfolio of potty training to meet this wild client.
Look at a lot of interesting.
Lianna, a question for you specifically, thinking about PR. Historically, it has been a lot about where can I get my content anywhere, even sometimes all press is good press, those types of mottos. Are you more selective with where your content goes, given the GEO moment and that GEO calculus?
All press still is, well, no, not in the AI world. But I think it's less about being precious about where, but just being strategic about where you spend your energy. So we're a Stacker partner, and figuring out which stories make sense for syndication versus which stories we want to put behind embargo and try and get top tier media. And then also through our audits, understanding which publishers do we want to build relationships with that historically we have not had relationships with or have not prioritized. It's more about where the focus of our effort is going and less about the individual hits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And Jen, for you, we talked about this in a couple different panels today, but I'm curious for your perspective. You're thinking a lot about, or you're used to dealing with a lot of like cost per click, return on ad spend, these types of questions. How are you reframing your answer or the question there?
I think it's this influence and sentiment. Like we've had to start describing AI visibility as like a billboard on the side of the road in some ways.
Yeah.
Because, and that's like kind of what old school, like social media went through this phase also. And like, fingers crossed the measurement gets better. Search Console's coming out with a report now. So like, that's cool. There's like very little data in it and like no one has access to it yet, but it's.
I want to talk to you about Bing.
Bing went to us and made us care about Bing finally. Like 3 years ago, we had to care about Bing. But yeah, I think it's such an education thing. It's trying to figure out like what is the thing that leadership really needs to care about? Because with some brands, it is sentiment. It is the narrative. Because like, yeah, you're showing up all the time. You're a brand that's existed for 50 years. For the smaller niche brands, it's like, what is visibility for the right intent? You talked a little bit about like prompt selection, but like, what are the prompts that actually matter that you want to show up for versus, the bests? Because the best is pretty zoomed out, but there is this opportunity for smaller brands right now because there's so much nicheness, nuance to the way people talk to LLMs and search conversationally. How does your brand show up there? Are you the beginner brand? Are you the lightweight brand? Because those are like the modifiers people are using. So from a reporting perspective, some of the other things we're integrating to server log analysis. How often are the bots hitting your website? What are they doing when they get there? The nuance of topic association. So are you more associated with potty training or is it something else? Baby food, baby-led weaning, those types of topics. And then at the platform level, which you mentioned too, I think that's been a really important nuance because sometimes this happened to me last week where you put this visibility score in front of a client. And they're like, oh, we're down 2% month over month. And I'm like, well, you're up 25% in AI overviews.
Right.
You're down 2% in, I don't know, Grok, whatever's throwing off the average. And so how much do you really care about all of those platforms? Do you care about them all equally? I think that's another important conversation too.
This actually brings up such a good point because one of the things we've been working really hard to figure out, and we don't have the answer yet, is beyond the publishers that have the most influence, and that might change by channel too, who's actually using the tool?
Oh yeah.
Right? So there's a huge conversation about a dual content approach where one's for humans, one for machines. And there's technical optimization and there's, make good content. Thanks, Google. And I think at the end of the day, your audience is still the user. A human is still putting in the prompt. And so understanding which humans are using which tools or which channels. Again, like we're talking about GEO in this, but like some consumer brands, social still matters a ton, right? And how you show up there. And if your Wikipedia only says one thing about your brand because of a really crazy story, and I am speaking from experience, but I can't say it on the stage, it maybe is worth putting like $20,000 worth of effort into getting the sources that will allow you to expand that page. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing to keep in mind is like, there's no erasure anymore, right? So if you want a narrative to go away, you have to replace it with something. You can't just say, take that down, right? The training models are done. They've already ingested it. So, and they're going to keep ingesting. So the more you can infuse the broad landscape of content to educate them about what you really stand for, the better you're going to be.
Thanks.
And how do you go about doing that? I'm curious if you can elaborate a little bit.
Well, like I said, we look at the broad picture of what we've started to get a little bit of data about, what kinds of persona types or audiences are using which tools when, coders like Claude, apparently a lot of B2B tech like Grok. I don't even know where that came from, but somebody found a report. But I don't trust all those yet, right? So then we're really just looking at as many platforms as we can to understand the average of how you're showing up and what publishers or platforms are influencing that the most. And then it's like very divide and conquer. Like, okay, this is a channel, Wikipedia, that the Earn team can influence, but it might take a year because we have to get media that says what we need it to say that Wikipedia editors will accept as a source. Okay, we can't just tell them. This linked influencer is showing up for a ton of the prompts that we want to show up for because they've built, or, a media house, right? If you're thinking about acquiring your content team, there might be a media platform out there that's already a subject matter expert in what you want to be known for. So finding those very specific things and then figuring out which one of them have like the outsized influence at this moment, and then continuing to check that quarter over quarter or month over month or however often you want to measure it as you're able to make progress. It's a kind of an exciting time. Like, it's the first time as a digital content person that I've been really excited since I started learning from HubSpot Academy like 12 years ago, where it's like, oh my gosh, I can influence this too, or I can do that, or I can experiment. I think coming out of an organic SEO, like an organic content team, and seeing the mindset that SEOs have always taken of experimentation, to now be able to bring that to other teams. And I would say like influencer teams, creator and social teams have also always been willing to experiment. But now you've got the C-suite kind of in this vulnerable position where no one knows how to influence it, and they're trusting, as long as you have great data studies from Scrunch or from Profound or from Muckrack, and from your own data analysis that can demonstrate the reality and point to specific things that might change that reality, then you have a roadmap. You just have to check yourselves along the way and see, did it work? No? Okay, what's next?
Right.
Well, what you're describing that resembles our approach as well. Like when you're going after, you want to be cited, there's not one way. Like you're looking at who is mentioning you, why being cited in AI. It's like, okay, well, this particular source can be influenced through paid media. This particular source is earned media. Like maybe this is a source that we can just straight up pay for. And so it goes back to this cross-disciplinary approach that it's mandatory if you're going to be successful in this channel. Because as an SEO, I typically wouldn't be doing influencer marketing. So I need to talk to our brand team. Our brand team doesn't understand like the PPC or the CPL world, which I understand really well.
Yeah. So. Well, even just the ability to say, okay, now that we're connected, can I read the press release before it goes out? Make sure it has the links we want. Yeah. Can I optimize the headlines? Can I add an FAQ to the press release? Just the formats of those things. And same with social and creator content, right? There's a whole infrastructure for data that can inform and optimize those posts beyond what an individual creator, depending on where your social team lives, right? And if they're doing paid, that has great data behind it or not. There's a lot of opportunity to try things.
Yeah, great.
And Michael, you're our in-house resident.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the audience who have a similar job to you. Yeah. What's your 2 sentences or less recipe for getting buy-in internally?
Narrative building is something, I think the word narrative has come up before. God bless people who work in like attribution marketing. I get so frustrated with that world because it just seems hopeless. Like, especially in the B2B world where I am, it's so complicated to figure out where someone originated from. And when, you can spend months and months and months and it's still not going to be adequate for like, your chief financial officer. And so I find it to be a lot more helpful to just make a lot of slides with a lot of arrows saying, we did this, we showed up here.
A lot of green numbers.
Yeah.
And that, this theoretically would lead to someone to Google our brand.
Yeah.
Right. And it goes like the billboard thing is good. It's a good analogy that someone can understand. But and I think they understand, okay, like there's this new thing. Google answers our question. It's mentioning our competitors, not mentioning us. That's a problem. It's a very simple thing to understand.
Yeah.
And so just taking it to the next level, say, okay, we are mentioned. We don't know if they're going to click it. Like Google's not giving us click data on AIOs, but you can conceptually understand how that might lead someone to Google your brand. Mm-hmm. And so painting a very clear narrative, I find is very helpful for CEOs, rather than trying to give them some airtight technical analysis and trying super hard to get that data from Salesforce to revenue. I hope that data exists someday. But right now, it's almost like it's too much effort when I need to just move and get up and get buy-in. And at least for where I'm sitting in my company, that's worked. They're like, they understand the risk of not being there, of not being mentioned. And they can kind of get the billboard analogy. We got to be there with our competitors.
Love the billboard analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said 2 sentences. You gave me 2 words. So I was challenged. Okay, great. I think we have time for one more question. So where does GEO measurement stand in 2 years? And who in this room is closest to building?
Well, I wouldn't venture to guess who's closest. Yeah, it's a hard one. But I do think the word panic has come up before. This has been a panic mode the past couple of years, and when there's a lot of AI visibility companies throwing a lot of terminology around. So certainly, I hope that there's some settling of the landscape. I guess to be a little more specific, I think what I'm starting to see is a little more nuance and segmentation.
Yeah.
So like my instinct and a lot of people in my field, their instinct was to track those top category, best category prompts to make sure that we're at least being mentioned among our competitors. But then I think we should move, I'm seeing other people do this, moving towards more like segmentation between non-branded, branded analysis. A lot of AI tools have sentiment analysis. And sentiment analysis isn't very useful when you're looking at like a prompt set where it's all, what are the best XYZ and what are the top XYZ, because it's very biased in a positive direction. It's a much more interesting sentiment analysis is when you apply it to like a branded prompt set where it's a little more neutral. Like, what do people think about my brand? What do people, or is my brand or this brand better? So I think that's where I see things moving, is a more like mature, nuanced approach to how we're looking at prompt tracking. And then also, as we keep hitting on this evolution of, it's not the SEO's job, or it's not this one team's job. This is literally, this needs to be owned by, in my opinion, like an executive at a large company, if you're a large company. Certainly it needs to be a very high visibility project, not just one team. So I hope it moves in that direction where this is a kind of new emerging layer in companies.
I'm also not going to put anybody up for best measurement tool, but I will say the people, tool, platform, whatever, that can figure out how to tie together advertising and like paid search where you were getting real data and we're getting, so I will say like in what I've seen from OpenAI ads, it's like pretty remedial and very minimal, but it's happening. Being able to tie that together with the organic story. So your ad was shown, you were mentioned in the answer, here's some idea of what the context of that was, would go a really long way for understanding holistic experience when they're within the platform. And then because there's some money behind it, they're willing to measure it. So that's nice. And maybe we can also use that data too. But I think that's really important. I also agree with like this cross-channel organization piece of building out, building measurement around it as well. So yes, you have individual channel KPIs, but what is your actual overall OKR, your objective and key result? And if it's AI search visibility or if it's improved brand authority, whatever that is, how are you laddering up toward it? I've also been thinking about like budgets in the same way, like how you're spending and allocating resources and these joint efforts in an area like influencer that normally gets spent. If you need it for SEO, how do you start to bundle those things together and then measure in that capacity too?
I have so many thoughts, and a lot of them are informed by what we've heard today. I agree. I would love if things would stabilize and become, a little more like, okay, we figured it out. But the durability question that came up in the last session, I think is really critical. I don't think that the long tail stickiness of an AI citation is going to get longer. There's ways Scrunch showed to extend it, but I think the way that these models are designed to constantly optimize and retrain means that we're never going to be out of a job, right? We're going to always have to keep optimizing and figuring out new things. So that said, I do think that we're going to get more sophisticated in looking at the metrics that matter. John mentioned, it used to be looking at top line traffic, right? But now it's like, and Jan, I think, reinforced, your traffic might be down, but your revenue is up. So I think the nuance of how we report and what we look at is going to evolve and get better. And my ideal state is as we break down these silos and all start working together, maybe blended CAC does become the metric, right?
Yeah.
All these channels working together, does our customer acquisition cost go down? Is our accuracy better? Is our share of voice up? So that maybe we can get away from like the 90 slide data deck and get into narrative reporting, right? And to me, that's like a perfect world where we're all pulling in the same direction and we're able to move brands forward that way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Those of us, we've been working in marketing for the past, couple of decades. It's like, I think we wanted to go back to where it was, or we're waiting for it to restabilize into the world that we understand. Search volume, CPC, CTR, like very, very consistent things you can measure in it. I don't feel confident that world's going to return. And I think that in some ways we're going to have to be more comfortable being marketers again. Or like you do the narratives again, the old billboard analogy. People pay for billboards, people pay for Super Bowl commercials, and not much revenue. There's not much attribution in those things.
Hey, CFO, is our cost down and our revenue up?
Yeah,
Great, that's us.
We should have a Super Bowl ad and convert it on our website. Like you don't know it, and you have to start treating search like our AIO, GEO the same way.
Yeah,
it's like you do it because obviously it works, and there's a certain brand of person who has a hard time accepting that. But I think we need, those of us in this profession, we need to get better at telling those stories and making those connections for people.
So we can get money.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think you three are on the cutting edge of measurement. Very impressive stuff. Humbled to be here. Thank you, everyone. That was fantastic.
Thanks.